no pleasure in saying this. When America goes to war, as an American soldier, I want us to win. But as an America's intelligence officer, I have committed to telling you the truth, the ruthless truth, no matter how hard or uncomfortable the truth is. And this is the ruthless truth. Even if Trump achieves regime change, we will lose. We won the revolution because Washington personally controlled intelligence. We won World War II because the OSS was military. Then the CIA was born, and we tied in Korea. Although we won every battle in Vietnam, we lost the war. Invasions like Panama and Venezuela are not wars, by the way. We lost Libya, we lost Syria. Even though we had regime change in Afghanistan and Ukraine, and I've interviewed the Green Berets on ODA 595, they've been on the show, the horse soldiers, we lost Afghanistan eventually. And we've been losing in Ukraine a long time. Because these are fourth generation indigenous resistance wars like our revolution, fought asymmetrically. It may take decades or even centuries, but homegrown resistance wars always win in the end. The invader tires and eventually departs. Iran-Persia is an ancient country, rich in national identity, with mountains full of fresh water, caves, and hides. Like Afghanistan or Russia, invaders are ultimately defeated by the terrain itself. To win, wars must be righteous. And no war contrived by Zionists Hegseth, Rubio, Witkoff, and Kushner is righteous. But the cabal, as in Kabbalists, don't care about us winning because American Protestant Zionists are still non-Jews. And both Christians of any stripe and Muslims are ultimately their enemies. A retired SOCOM soldier, ex-DEA special agent, and DI intelligence officer turned whistleblower warrior. Served in sabotage, rejected and redeemed, failed and forgiven, betrayed and saved, rejecting revenge, humbled and blessed, repurposed in redemption, as chaplain, leader, teacher, and truth teller. Now your intelligence officer, following God, leading my family, and any that choose to join on our long walk to faith and freedom. Welcome. I'm Jeff Prather, and this is the Prather Point. Hey, everybody. Really happy to be with you. Really exciting show. Lots happening. Spread the word. Got a very special guest, but before we get there, the title is Killing Charlie, Backfires on Israel and TPUSA, and that is very true. That I'm going to get into, but the subtitles are Iran hits UAE chemtrail and HQ, it rains. And so I've got to retract that. I found out that that was false. So my apologies, asking pardon on that. They did not hit, Iran did not hit chemtrail facilities. They hit radar facilities, which I've already reported on. But I did post on my patreon.com / Jeffrey Prather at the Psy Warrior $15 a month level, a special document, Weather as a Force Multiplier, Owning the Weather in 2025. It's a U.S. Air Force official document. You may have seen it before. I've posted it before, but I've reposted it, saying in 2025, U.S. aerospace forces own the weather by capitalizing on emerging technologies and focusing development of those technologies to warfighting applications. Such a capability offers the warfighter tools to shape the battle space in ways never before possible, from enhancing friendly operations or disrupting those of the enemies. Of course, I've had on the geoengineering experts before, and I certainly agree with all of that. But the story that Iran hit specifically UAE chemtrail and geoengineering facilities was false, and I apologize for that, and I retract that at this time. I also want to point out that give my respect and prayers out to the 2 CIA officers who were killed in Mexico. Of course, I've spent a lot of time working in Mexico. At first, in fact, cross-border operations were the most dangerous thing I ever did, and I've done a lot of dangerous stuff. So it looks like these guys are really in the fight now. They were probably ground branch, the special activities. Well, they don't call it SAD anymore, call it something else. But it's their special activities, ground branch guys, and they were at a lab of some kind which, harkens back to my days in Operation Snowcap in Central and South America. And of course, the torture and murder of our agent, Kika Camarena, is how I became a whistleblower. So respect and prayers out to the CIA officers that were killed recently. And it looks like they are doing their job. It looks like the CIA is down there doing clandestine operations. Of course, my old group, 7 Special Forces, was down there a while back. They're probably down there as well. And some Tier 1 Spec Ops guys and intelligence as well. But respect out there. On the other hand, DEA boss indicted for cartel money laundering, and I knew this guy, by the way, former senior DEA official Paul Campo spent 25 years climbing the ranks under Obama to become deputy chief of financial operations for DEA. And by the way, DEA was one of the few agencies in my day to ever make a profit. Why? Because we seized drugs and cash and cars, and so we went into a U.S. Marshals fund, the Civil Aperture Fund. There was a lot of corruption in that. I saw guys trying to make cases, just to get the Hummer or whatever, literally. But this guy agreed to launder $12 million for the cartel, successfully washed $750,000 for him, helped finance 220 kilograms of cocaine, headed straight for the American streets, and offered his insider expertise to help the terrorists get weapons, explosives, and he retired in 2016. I was fired in 2009 after 19 years on the job with never having a bad evaluation, never being charged, never being convicted. And I will tell you that this corruption begins at the group supervisor level, the assistant special agent in charge level, the special agent in charge, the ASAC, SACs, GSs, and then on up. In the 90s, it was still a kick-ass organization. That's why I left Special Forces to join there. But by the 2000s, it was becoming very corrupt. So it's kind of topsy-turvy now. It looks like the CIA is actually doing their job and the DEA is not, but that's the way that is reading. So, but getting back to the title, Turning Point UGA chapter president Caroline Maddox just resigned. And the reason she resigned was because of total corruption in Turning Point USA. And she was saying that in her resignation, she stated the organizer's current trajectory no longer aligns with the principles of truth it was built on. On TPUSA's mission, it became abundantly clear to me following our event on April 14th, that TPUSA's mission and purpose had lost its way. Charlie spent his life fighting the truth, gave his life, I would say, fighting the truth, and do not believe he would stand for the blatant dishonesty now being spread by the organization that he built. The final stand, Maddox concluded by citing Charlie's own words, stand up for what is right, even if you stand alone. Yeah, get used to that. That's normally the way it is. And, this is the whole thing in Georgia where they said there was a threat against her, but so she didn't show up, but she was there evidently. But J.D. Vance, her possible lover there, from the way they are stroking each other on camera, did show up. And I guess the Secret Service was somehow involved. And I've worked with Secret Service special agents, used to shoot with them because I was a firearms instructor at Quantico. And they said there was no threat because, if there had been a real threat for Erica, it would certainly be for the vice president, and they on stage at the same time. So they've really disgraced themselves. Everything else about the story keeps falling apart. So this is really the fall of TPUSA, and that's why this is so significant. This resignation and the explanation thereof is extremely significant. Remember, Charlie was publicly assassinated in a very sophisticated operation. Remember, too, I'm always talking about, because I started off in PSYOPs, for PSYOP group, is there is a psychological force multiplying effect in assassinations. You shoot the one guy, yeah, but then you got a whole battalion, brigade, division, whatever, ducking down. It's a force multiplication operation. The perpetrators are highly probably U.S. and Israeli government. The motive was twofold: show the world what happens when one abandons or opposes the Israeli cause, and turn TPUSA back to an Israeli-centric organization via evangelical Zionism. Both objectives have failed. Israel and American Zionists do not understand nor believe in the biblical fallen human nature and do not study history, particularly early Christian martyrdom history. Just as killing Khomeini had the opposite of the desired effect when the Iran war kicked off, so has Charlie's assassination. Resistance to Zionism, both in America and Israel, is now at an all-time high. And Israel and U.S. forces are stymieing when they're not defeated outright. Zechariah 12:3 is coming true. And that is a Torah, Old Hebrew Bible prediction about the nations turning against TPUSA. So, and of course, the other big public fiasco was the IDF soldier knocking off the head of Yeshua, Jesus, on a large Lebanese crucifix. And of course, the president of Lebanon is Christian. There's a lot of Lebanese Christians. That's where the early church first went, because if they went west, they ran into the Roman Empire. So they went east. That's the first church. You know, I'm a Christian chaplain. We use Aramaic texts, Aramaic to English, because Yeshua spoke Aramaic. And they have actually apologized for that. Well, this is something Israel never do. They never, when they attacked the USS Liberty and killed our sailors, they didn't even apologize for that. This they're apologizing for. So this is very significant that this is a change. And this is a sea strategic change in that American and Israeli Zionism is falling. And we can see that domestically, continental United States with TPUSA failing, and we can see that internationally is with Israel. So that's why that is so important. Why is that so important? Because we are in a religious war, and it is being cited as religious. You saw Trump suddenly reading the Bible, reading Chronicles. He doesn't read the Bible. It's pretty obvious from his previous conversations. But this has affected what Trump is doing. Trump is now saying he's not tied to any specific timeline in finalizing the Iran deal, which he's always given these deadlines and then backing off. And now he's like, doesn't have one at all. Well, you know, why is that? Well, that's because he cannot control the airspace, the air battle space, and he cannot control the water battle space. He killed and destroyed docked Iranian ships and a cadet ship, but the underwater drones, the submarines, all of that he hasn't even touched. And of course, the carriers have pulled way back from the Strait of Hormuz. And so he's also saying that the boarding of Iran boarding ships is not breaking the ceasefire. So this is Trump being very conciliatory, and I want to be clear, all you ever-Trumpers, get this. I'm complimenting the president. I'm praising him. I know I've been criticized. Well, here I'm praising him for his restraint and not putting our troops on the ground where they will be massacred. Just like my Tuesday guest, young Green Beret, just out, was saying it would be a disaster. So I'm praising President Trump for his restraint here. But I think it's really directed because he can't win. He does not control the air battle space. He does not control the water battle space, and he is losing. But regardless, it doesn't matter. I'm happy that my brother and sisters are not going onto the ground. But that probably also has a lot to do with that in northern Lebanon, Iran used 300 missiles against 5 Israeli Defense Force brigades and basically destroyed the brigades. Now, they didn't destroy every soldier in those brigades, but they destroyed those 5 brigades as military units, and they did it in a very short time. So that's very significant as well. Israel has never suffered these kind of losses before. You know, traditionally, they've been able to dominate the battle space around them, and they are not doing that. So in every regard that I understand, in every category, America and Israel are losing this unjust war, unrighteous war. And that is very important. I'm trying to get Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson on the show. He does a great breakdown of this. I republished it on my Patreon. If you haven't seen it, go to it, or you can just go to YouTube and get it, where the Iran destroys 5 IDF brigades with 300 missiles in minutes, literally in under an hour. So that is really important to see. And so whether Trump is doing this because he's losing and Israel's losing too, I don't care. I'm just glad that our troops aren't going, and I'm going to compliment Trump on that. But I really want to get to my guest and a very important subject here. This is uncovered. So what you're getting with me as an intelligence officer is my analyzed intelligence information opinion, but it's still just an opinion, unless I'm putting on my former special agent hat, where I'm presenting proof, which is fact-based evidence admissible in court. The two are quite different. But my guest is someone who does find the truth through intelligence and through cyber work and AI. And the Dangster, as he prefers to be known, is currently leading one of the most documented investigations into Salem Media Group's foreign agent entanglement. That's the FARA laws. Brad Pascal serves as Chief Strategy Officer at Salem, while operating simultaneously as a registered foreign agent under FARA through Clock Tower. And that goes back eventually to Israel. I'll let him explain that in detail. But all of these, the agents and not agents, but they're agents, but actors, assets such as Larry or Laura Loomer are under Salem Media Group. So while they're calling Tucker and Candace, and I guess I'm too small to be called that, no, actually I have been called that recently, now that I think about it, foreign agents, the actual foreign agents are the people who are calling you a foreign agent, which is always the way it is. Whatever, I learned this the hard way, whatever they're accusing you of, they're the ones actually doing. So additionally, they've investigated the Utah Valley University, unreported findings, and TPUSA for forensics. We're going to get into all that. And one of his websites is the American for Nonprofit Transparency, and that is a very great website. I looked at it. They do not do accusations of criminality. They're for radical self-transparency, nonpartisan truth-seeking, First Amendment foundation. And they're saying in the past decade, American nonprofit sector has undergone a dramatic transformation. Organizations that were once small community charities have grown into multi-hundred-million-dollar operations with complex corporate structures. And that's exactly what I've been talking about with the child trafficking, of how the overall child trafficking organizations control, Catholic Charities, Lutheran, Hebrew Immigration Assistance Society, all of those for child trafficking. And so they're really digging into this deeply, and kind of in a way that it's difficult for me to understand because I'm a dinosaur. But I went to the other side of my work is competitive intelligence in GRIN, genetics, robotics, information, and nanotechnology. Been doing that for over a decade. Got a cyber expert who teaches FBI, Secret Service, and I handed them the Dangster's stuff to be sure. And the stuff checked out, said, yeah, this is the real deal. This is good stuff. Very impressive. So without further ado, let me get you on here. Welcome. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Pleasure to be here. It's really, I loved everything that you said. It all rings true. When we look at the paperwork, when we look at the filings, when we look at the way that these nonprofits are moving money around, it's a really interesting way and a very smart way, I guess, to take advantage of the system. In my opinion, that's what it looks like. I see alleged fraud everywhere. I see just things that don't make sense. And it really started with me looking into the funding and the donation pool of TPUSA. Now, I can't say for sure on the record that are they doing fraud? I don't know, but from what it looks like, when people are starting their own companies to take profits off of donations, as working as a board-seated member. There's just so much there. So that kind of triggered me to want to go into looking into nonprofits, looking into government donations, looking into basically the apparatus of the American government, essentially. And then it turns into noticing foreign agents are in our media apparatus, literally being paid hundreds of millions of dollars to spew rhetoric on behalf of Israel. But I'm a documents guy, and I don't work from feelings. I work from filings, is what I like to say. FARA registrations, IRS 990s. That's the Dangster Intel standard, and that's kind of why I'm here. So thank you for having me.
No, that's a great. So let's get into that, because everything you do is based on fact, and you pull the resources for that. So what's a 990?
Yeah, a Form 990 is a nonprofit's filing. Basically, when we all file our taxes, right? If you file your taxes, then you have to fill out your form. Well, that's the form that a nonprofit 501c3, 501c4 would file. And so they put all of the information in there, their president, all the employees, all the board members, how much people are getting paid, their positions, their mission statement, anybody they're doing business with, and loans. I mean, you name it. So this is their tax filing form.
And so what does that, let's go back to the opening where Laura Loomer or Larry and all these people have been accusing Tucker and Candace of being foreign agents. Who actually did you discover are the foreign agents?
Yeah, so there's a company called Clock Tower X LLC. On my website, americansfortransparency.org, you can scroll down there on the main page. There's an interactive map, and it shows, I'll tell you how this works, because it's not just Clock Tower, but they are one of the major players when it comes to getting the media integrated messaging, right? So the Israeli Hasbara budget, along with the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they encompass this money, which I believe actually comes from Americans, taxpayers, and other forms of donations, as foreign funding or foreign what have you. And then the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs sends it back, and they send it to 3 major companies. And then those companies, 2 of which are called Havas, Havas Media Group, one out of Germany, one out of the US. However, they're intermediaries. So they take the money and then they disperse it amongst 12 to 15 different LLCs. There's new ones coming around here and there. I've been doing updates and stuff, but Clock Tower X LLC is the primary company that is integrating Salem Media Group messaging into that group. So they're integrating Israeli propaganda or pro-Israeli biased messaging. And in the Foreign Agent Registration Act filing, which is a filing that is required if you're taking money on behalf of a foreign government, you have to file this. It's mandated by law. This was back in like 1939, I think, which actually Pam Bondi recently dismantled the oversight of this. So it went from being a federal crime to a civil courts claim, which I wonder why she would do that on her first week in office. But anyways, Clock Tower X LLC actually receives money from the Israel Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And in the FARA documents of Clock Tower X LLC on FARA.gov and on my website, it literally says mandated to integrate messaging, pro-Israel messaging, into Salem Media Group network and aligned network properties. So it's not even just Salem Media Group. However, it's pretty much everybody that's been on Salem Media Group, any of the podcasters, news shows, radio shows, you name it, all of the people. Charlie Kirk show is their #1 podcast. They were on news broadcasting. I talked to Tyler Boyer not too long ago, and I wanted to confirm that. He said they're not on the news side, but they're still doing podcasting. Well, the thing is that it's not just Charlie Kirk. It's Josh Hammer. You've got PragerU, Dennis Prager. I mean, pretty much everybody that seems to be like the current MAGA or whatever took over MAGA and is now this neocon. I don't know what to even call it, but they are essentially running Israel messaging through the entire Salem Media Group. And the way that works is because, one, it's in the FARA document, but what's interesting is how they actually integrate the messaging is the chief strategy officer of Salem Media Group is the owner of Clock Tower LLC. Okay, so he is literally the chief strategy officer of Salem Media Group. He is in charge, working hand in hand with the CEO, developing basically the forefront of the conversation that and the direction that Salem Media Group is supposed to go. So day by day, that's the leader of their strategy. And if your chief strategy officer is a registered foreign agent, I find that a problem. Not to mention Donald Trump Jr. and Lara Trump also own significant stake inside of Salem Media Group, as well as Salem Media Group owning 30% of Don Jr.'s MXM News app. So their business married. The White House's family is completely hand in hand working with an Israeli propagandist machine inside of the largest Christian American radio podcasting organization in the country.
Wow, I was on a radio show years ago, and it was a Christian station. Then they sold it, and then I was kicked off. That was my first censorship there before I got censored on YouTube. So that parallels what investigations we've done into child trafficking. I can't think of the name of the organization. Somebody can put it in the chat for me. But there's an overall organization that keeps all the umbrella organizations like the Hebrew Immigration Assistance Society, like the Lutheran organization, like the Catholic bishops, and they all bring in the illegals as well. It's the same. It looks like the same format, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you can basically, when it comes, I mean, we're talking now. You throw in this, you got a little different angle, but yeah, you've got money that's going into a main organization, but then gets filtered through different agendas, right? For example, like Clock Tower X LLC, and that's why I said like the 12 to 15 companies. It's not just Clock Tower X LLC and Salem Media Group. They also have Show Faith by Works receiving millions of dollars to geofence churches. You've got I think Bridges. I got to pull up my site, but
so that on your Americans for Nonprofit Transparency, you talk about certain American churches being targeted, and that's on your site. And actually, somebody's put your site up in the chat already, which is great. But yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that geofencing, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, what we have is geofencing. A lot of people say they know what it is, right? And it's been used for quite some time with technology and ads, and Target and Walmart will use it. You walk in, your phone gets pinged. I've made a video explaining the architecture. It's Wi-Fi fingerprinting. It's Bluetooth hopping. And when I say that, basically, when you go into a church that is targeted by geofencer, and there's like 502 churches that are actually filed, and 303 of them are mega churches with like a minimum of 2,000 members, on the high end 50,000 attendees every Sunday. But the way it works essentially is you walk in and they have a perimeter around this church. And remember, there's hundreds of them in the Southwest and all over the country. You walk in and it can identify through your Wi-Fi, through your Bluetooth, how long you've been there, how frequently you come, who you talk to, who you stand next to, who you sit next to in the pews, who you talk to in the courtyard, who you park next to. I mean, it's mapped, that whole church, the parking lot, everything in between. There's different levels of, I guess you could say, like the parking lot would have a certain meter level of like sensitivity. And then as you get into the core center of it, it literally, every single person in that pew, they're doing Bluetooth hopping. So it'll send a message. Say, for example, me and you are sitting next to each other and I've got phone number, Bluetooth number 12345. It'll ping to 6789, and it'll say, "Hey, I'm here. How are you?" And I'm just trying to make it understandable. But this Bluetooth, it'll start hopping to everybody in that pew, and then in the church, and then when you leave, it'll maybe connect you back. Say you go to lunch, me and you go to lunch, and then it starts to build this social map. Okay, well, they go to lunch they have coffee at Starbucks on a Tuesday for half an hour. They're friends, and they go to church together. Oh, well, this person's wife comes together. I mean, it's a full mapping system, and it's kind of like a virus. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're already fully mapped, because you don't have to even go to church. Once you spend enough time around a person, their system will actually recognize that you are an associate of somebody that goes to this church, and then they'll start monitoring you. And the way that works is that they do deals with other companies that are in your phone. Like every single app says, we talk to your phone, other apps inside of your phone. We can communicate with other intelligence inside of the data. Like they gathered intelligence based off the data from other apps, other people around you. So this system is specifically designed to target Christian Americans. And that is, if you notice, there's a theme here. You've got Christians at church, you've got a Christian American radio podcasting conglomerate, and you've got Israel paying hundreds of millions of dollars to target Christian Americans. What is the purpose for that? So as we get further into the conversation, it'll be quite clear that this contract value of hundreds of millions of dollars and the $729 million Hasbara budget has been put to work and is effectively working right now. There's $3.2 million alone just in a 6-month budget for Show Faith by Works. And it's a lot of people don't know it, understand it at all. I've tried to make it very clean and simple to understand, but it is still very complex. And people say, well, what do I don't go to church. I'm like, well, you just don't take your phone. You know what I mean? Like at the very least, but either way, if somebody talks to you, goes, I mean, it's really hard to get around. So that's a very simple way of explaining what this geofencing thing is, but it's not just ads anymore. It is so much more than that, because actually what they do is they do something called generative engine optimization, GEO. You can look it up on Google. Basically, they create, when I say they, I just say the geofencer or anybody performing generative engine optimization. It's like the AI version of SEO. All right. So SEO, you'd have keywords and metadata in your website for it to pull up, rank on Google, or if you search something, it'll show up for specific keywords. GEO is designed specifically for an artificial intelligence system to pull out information and distribute it through its output, right? So if you search for anything related to Israel or questioning Israel, Iran, and America, they build hundreds of websites with hundreds of thousands of articles to show the AI that they are like a force in this, or like a very knowledgeable website to get this information from, and it gains the trust of the AI systems, all of them. So it's not like they do this deal. Sometimes they do deals with like OpenAI and stuff, but they don't even have to, because the AI will recognize their websites as an authority and start conveying information to you from their sites if their websites are putting out more information on that topic than the true information. It could be true, it could be false, it could be propaganda, it could be spun in a way that true but biased for their behalf. So not only that, they also inject specific messaging into the pastors of those churches. So say the pastor, they usually won't even know that they're being geofenced. So say they're at their church, or even at home, because their phone is already tracked, they will go and type in maybe this pastor, this message from the Bible or what have you, and this passage. And then the AI will recognize that it's part of this geofencing social map system, and it'll give it messaging to the audience through the pastor. And it's this slow radicalization that happens over weeks and months, and the pastor doesn't even know he's doing it, right? So that's kind of,
hold on, because you're saying so much and it's so important. So the first thing, so I want to kind of break it down for all the dinosaurs out there like me, is what you're really saying is this is like a cyber case file, which then becomes like a Palantir license reading thing, but it's bigger than that. And by the way, and I'm going to say open source, I never reveal old classified information, but there's open source articles that show that the DEA has a office in Fairfax. It's called Special Operations Group. And in that office sits NSA, NRO, CIA, all the intelligence agencies collecting SIGINT data, which is classified, but then they will pass it to the other side of the room where all of the FBI, US Marshals, Secret Service, DEA sit. And they will say, here, now develop, they'll take this classified SIGINT intercept and then hand it off and say, now develop your own parallel probable cause, which is really fruit of the poisonous tree. And that has become, that actually started from a DEA intercept, Colombia to America a long time ago, couldn't afford it, handed it off to the CIA, and now it's grown into this Frankenstein monster. But then you take that and tie that into the oligarch, Palantir license reading systems. You develop your cyber files, which then become AI files. If I'm kind of
the AI will take the information and start utilizing it in whatever way that they want them to do it.
Okay, so I'm tracking this. I'm tracking all this.
Absolutely, yeah. Say like they get all this information from the church, like they know that I go this location, I go to the gym. This person also goes to the same gym. Oh, but we're both on X and we're talking about stuff that they would deem anti-Semitic or whatever. Then you become this target. I mean, everyone's a target essentially, but there's different tiers of extremism, I guess you would say, that they would consider you.
Just like everybody's market product, their data in the regular advertising area, in this, the parallel is they are targets. And when and so when you said that they are radicalized over a period of time, they're psyop, they're propagandized, immediately it sprang to mind Genesis 12:3, which Huckabee misquoted, and Tucker let him go. I thought that Tucker, on the flight over would actually open up a Bible. I did Substacks and sermons on this. It never says, the only Bible it says Israel, who blesses Israel, I will bless, is in the Schofield Bible, which is a false Bible. You're inserting, it's you. It's God talking to Abraham. The word is you. But when you said that, I immediately clicked, because that smacks exactly of what I think you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Everybody just buys this fake quote where you actually insert words.
Yeah, this is the thing, is that Israel, this is just my opinion, of course, everything. I always tell people I'm just a comedian making jokes. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm just a funny guy. So I have no idea what I'm talking about. But this is what I think is happening, is that Israel and the Zionists, Christian Zionists, Judaist Zionists, I believe that they are just using the fact that they know American Christians, Western Christians, or anyone that has a Bible or deems themselves religious in the Jesus Christ sense as a Christian. They're just betting on the fact that they don't understand their Bible and that they don't read it and they don't have conversations regarding what something like Genesis 12:3 means. And when you say like when you think about why would they even name the country Israel, right? Like that itself screams to me that they are using that plot of land as a weapon, right? Just as a psychological weapon, just for the property itself. Because if you actually understand the Bible, it has nothing to do with a location. Israel or Israelites are believers in Christ. The original Hebrews and Abraham and all of this has nothing to do with Canaan. Oh, they're like, oh, well, Canaan, and they wanted their land. It has nothing to do with that anymore. That's the Old Testament. Then now we've got the New Testament with Christ. And that is what it's meant to be interpreted as we are. I am Israel. If you're a believer in Christ, that's how I understand it. I could be wrong, but they are betting on that we don't understand.
You're exactly right. And I got give me some of that says not if it's bagged, and that is true. Not if it's bagged, and that's why you guys need to get your. It's a good segue into making sure you're getting your Faraday bags, which you can get at beready123.com or sat123.com. You can get your Iridium 9555 phones there as well, or you can get them on the jeffreyprather.com shop as well. But all Team America guys are required to have bags. So yeah, if you want to solve that problem, you got to get an EMF bag if you're going to take it to church. Then when you come out of church, but of course you're in the parking lot, the same thing happens again, what you're talking about. But there's
people have mentioned the Faraday bags to me. I always tell them, I'm like, hey, you can use it. It's only effective. Like if you're going to use it, you might as well not bring it. You're much safer not bringing it. And also anybody that goes to church with you, not bring it, because also your car has Wi-Fi. It has Bluetooth. It's not just your phone. Okay. Anything that has Bluetooth, GPS, and Wi-Fi, they can use any one of those three in order to track. So it's the vehicles. You might as well walk and leave your phone. Otherwise, you're at risk of being tracked. And also, the Faraday bag only works if you don't use your phone at all. You don't open it up at all. So what's the point of bringing it anyways? You know what I mean? So I think that they are great to have, especially when you are going somewhere you don't know if you're gonna. It's always good to have something like that. However, the fact that we need to use it at all is, in my opinion, BS.
That's a great point. When I always talk about, if you're going someplace and you're using the map finder, drive past that place, then put it on airplane mode, then turn it off, then bag it up, then go back to that place. With helicopters, we do false insertions. You just don't go straight into your location. You stop at several different locations, false insertions, so they don't know where you're at. But yeah, using all that stuff correctly is a great point. I'm going to see if I can turn on these comments from your guys. They're really small. Can't really see them very well. Let's see if I can get those bigger. I can't.
Welcome to all the Dangsters in the chat. We've got like 400 on YouTube, probably close to the same on X. Thanks for joining. Man, I'm privileged to be here with Mr. Prather. I was just talking to him briefly about his story, and I'm going to hopefully have him on my show. I'd love to pick your brain. I mean, you're talking about Iran-Contra and going all the way back to those days. So that's just an incredible history you've got yourself.
Yeah, I'd love to come on. But you're loving what we're talking about here. Really important stuff, and want to keep diving into that. And so the AI. So really, you're talking about an AI target folder, I guess I would call it in my language.
Yeah, an AI mapping. It's I guess a mapping system, and then they do file it, and then they file it. I obviously I don't know what it looks like on their end. I've built my own version of what I think it looks like. I can send you a video. I think you'd like it. That explains the whole system. I'm a coder, so I built like graphics that show exactly how this stuff works. It's very interesting. But yeah, I mean, it is what I'm telling you, how it is exactly how it is. And I've done the research. I've even built websites to combat the propaganda websites.
I saw that. Well, that's your other website, which is the only AI platform built for defense industrial base. And that is what's the
agienterprise.io. So I'm an AI developer for military defense contractors for the Department of Defense. I build AI tools that are CMMC, air gap, local inference, SOC2, secret level 2 compliant, anything that the government would need in order to operate an AI system. Because right now, you can't operate an AI system in the government defense environment because of the cloud system. It's called cloud inference. When you send your data to the cloud, well, it's always at risk, right? And when you're building missiles, you're building anything that is classified information, you just can't have a cloud inference system. Microsoft Azure does have what's called a GCC high environment, government controlled cloud. However, you're still at risk putting your government intel inside of Microsoft Azure. And it's really not all that great. So what I do I'm contracted with one of the largest defense contractors in the country as an independent. And I am contracted to the contractor. So I just work for the contractors. However, yeah, I mean, I build tools, whatever they need, literally. And that's the fortunate part of being in on the ground floor of coding and AI from day one. So agienterprise.io, if you want to go check it out. Yeah. So,
and I also want to say again, because I work in competitive intelligence and GRIN, Genetics, Robotics, Information and Technology, I had my cyber expert who is very expert, trains FBI, Secret Service, everybody, and they validated all your stuff in detail.
Very cool. So very good to know. I haven't had anybody tell me that or look into that, but you know.
Oh yeah, I had to check you out to see if your stuff was real, and this person is very critical. And has worked for me for 15 years. So, but that leads me to another big. Well, first of all, the Israelis are all over the place. They're in the Pentagon. They've got access to everything. That's really human. I say all intelligence ultimately is human intelligence because I was a humenter back in the day. And also the cloud, of course, can be infiltrated or leaked. But there's also the problem of AI, as I understand it, in that there is a error rate someplace between 30 and 60%. And then when you were saying something about these, and I'd like you to explain this a little more for dinosaurs like me, is then it builds, these AI platforms build upon themselves and establish their own artificial credibility, which isn't necessarily with integrity or even authenticity. Am I doing justice to what you're saying?
Yeah, you're right there. You're right there. They look, I always, when I read through their sites, like one of them, I'll just tell off the mind because I was recently looking, justorium.org, like justice, but justorium.org. You can go there, and then if you scroll to the bottom, it'll say like powered by Clock Tower X LLC Market Brew. And they Market Brew with Clock Tower X LLC, they build these websites. And if you go to like they have like these news articles, everything is built on their site in a way that gains confidence for the AI. That's their entire mission, is to have AI spew their rhetoric. That's it. That is all they want. And so they build these like what looks like news articles. There's a picture with a title of it or like a header, and then it'll have like whatever quoted information, and it'll have like multiple paragraphs of specifically designed pieces of information that are keyword integrated. So if somebody searches like, is Israel and America working together in Iran or whatever it might be, it'll go to the website, and then there will be like dozens of articles that look like news articles or informative articles, but they're just from some dude that built an AI bot that's just spinning out these fake news articles with information that they want it to say. Some of it could be real, some of it could be not real, some of it could be a mixture of both. Most of the time it reads very authentic, and it's just because like I guess they really believe in what they're saying, or they are, I mean, I just have a hard time finding someone like Brad Parscale, who's a Kansas-born American, 6 foot, like 10 or something, beer drinking dude, like spewing out Israeli pro messaging on dozens of websites. So obviously he's being fed this information, or his team, and they are building websites that have these articles, and it's literally just designed for AI to gather the information and build authority. And the more times the website for the AI like ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, any of them goes to it, and it sees like, oh, wow, this information is credible. And then the user will engage in the chat with that information. It'll go back to the site, pull more information back. So it just builds this credibility with the relationship of that website and the AI, and it becomes an authority on that topic. And AI will disregard pretty much all the other sites and continue to go to that site for more of the same information.
No, so it channels you as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they're always sensing the engagement of the behalf of the user. The whole point of the AI system is to keep it being used, right? So if it finds a website credible enough to deliver information that creates conversation, it will continue to go back to the site. So there's a deep level of psychological operation happening inside of these websites from the back end to word things in a way that create engagement and create interest, and then also intrigue and just this multi-way conversation, website to AI to user, and then somebody else will go and they'll share the information, and it just strengthens the the authenticity gauge of the AI for that website, if that makes sense.
It does. So let me put that into dinosaur stuff. Is when I used to be PSYOP, if we were dropping leaflets like on the first Gulf War that was so successful, and the physical PSYOP indicator of success was that the thousands of Iraqi soldiers came out with their hands up or their weapons over their head. So this is kind of like a cyber leaflet because it is actually grabbed by one person,
100%.
Except it's even more personalized in that leaflet because all the leaflets say the same thing. But the AI message that the file is built upon is extremely personal and targeted. So
Absolutely.
It's even more effective.
Absolutely. And then what happens is the user believes the information, and because you'll see like in the AI, it'll say searching and the web browser will pop up and it'll show the website, fetched the website, and then you can see it thinking, and it's like, oh wow, it came from this website. They'll go to the website, and like it just, I mean, the user believes the information, man. I mean, then there's nobody, like, the only way to combat this stuff is to actually go to those websites and build AI agents, which I've been thinking about doing, and I've already done some, but literally go to those websites and track. This is how I would do it. I'll just tell you. You would go to the website, you'd gather all the websites. I would build an AI agent for every website. For every article that's on the site, I would build pro-American information that's fact-based, and I would triple my output against theirs. That way I could gain authority in the opposite and make sure that people are getting true information. It would take time for the AI, but then the AI would start. So anybody out there that wants to fight for America, that is the most effective way right now today in the digital age to fight propaganda, is to know what websites there are, which they're on americansfortransparency.org through the Clock Tower X LLC. They have to put all their websites on document and build websites that combat the propaganda with truth.
Well, I don't know who you've got contracts with, and you're not going to tell me because I used to do a lot of government contracts too, but on shooting and driving and fighting. But you should be in cybercom, is where you should be. If you're not, then that's where you need to get. I remember when cybercom stood up, and it's very hard to keep up. It's not the old. In my professions, it was the old guy mentoring the young guy, but I think in this one, it's more the young guy mentoring the older guy because the stuff changes so fast. But
I'm new to the I mean, obviously AI is new, right? And so the defense contracting stuff is new for me. I built a particular set of skills that I got very fortunate to meet the vice president of operations of one of the companies, and then they wanted to move me up the chain. And so all I'm doing right now for them is AI work, whatever they want. So it could be anything. You're right, I can't tell you who it is and what specifically I'm doing, but it is very important work. However, I would love to do cyber work for combating this type of stuff on an official level. But for now, it's independent, and that's what's been able to keep me free and say whatever I want to say. And honestly, I would love to meet other people that are doing this stuff. It's just I haven't seen anybody, and so I'm doing as much as I can.
I highly doubt that cybercom or the FBI's units that do this are, now I've been out for a long time, but I highly doubt that they're doing it at the sophisticated level that you are, because they already have, when AI does these things, they generate references, false references. And if you go and look up the reference, it doesn't exist. But there, you've seen that. We've already seen that quite a bit, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So, and a lot of this stuff lies, you know, what's interesting about the way web development works. A lot of times you can, there's what's called back pages, and you can build thousands of back pages. Like we could just have one website, jeffreyprather.com, and it would just be one website. There's nowhere to click, nowhere to go. But on the back end and the metadata, I could build thousands of back end sites that nobody can see unless you know the specific URL. And I can make the URL a bunch of numbers and letters and forward slashes and dashes to where nobody would ever guess what it is, but that information lives and is indexed in the internet. And so you'll never find the actual URL where this information is coming from. That's how they perform the work that you're just talking about.
So that's so interesting, because I can tell you from my competitive intelligence work that is already happening. And that's, do you know what a dead drop is? Where
yes.
Yeah. So the old, if you watched with that Tom Hanks movie with the Russian spy guy, you know, dropping off dead drop, it's cyber dead drops like that on websites now are being used exactly as you are describing.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at, you know, these covert asynchronous methodologies for exchanging, you know, information without direct contact, really is kind of that is the most effective way to get information across without revealing who's delivering the information and blowing their cover. The whole point of a dead drop, really, especially being cyber, is to be covert, right? So, I mean, they could do this through malware, dead drop resolvers. They could do it through like USB dead drops, shared draft emails. I mean, anonymous sharing portals. There's all kinds of ways of doing that, and it's just getting more and more advanced. And with AI, the AI can come up with all kinds of crazy stuff that people have never thought of, and they can do it much more effectively and faster. And so I use AI every day, all day. I built multiple different types of AI. I call them agencies, because I have AI doing stuff for me all of the time on my computer and, you know, whatever. But that's where we are. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, AI is taking over. And like, yeah, like definitely AI is taking over. We're already past the AI ChatGPT is going to take over therapy stuff. We're talking AI. We're talking now agents, right? That have specific sets of skills. So like last night, for example, I was just building this agent that can basically gather information on a regular basis on X, YouTube, news articles built for my live streams. And it's like, hey, I found this information. I think you'd like that. And then it'll write the whole thesis and the script. It'll combine combined a bunch of information and tell me, all right, this is exactly what's going on. This is the information. This is where it's coming from. These are the 4 articles I pulled it from. And this is what I think your video should be about. So, I mean, like, you could literally make an AI agent for every single thing that you want, and it could run 24/7 without you doing anything once you deploy it through things like OpenClaw, Claude Code. And then also I build local systems that I can disconnect my computer from the internet, and I could code and write tools and use AI and all that. So they have that as well through Ollama, Ollama. If you have a computer strong enough, you can run your own AI system. And so I specialize really, that is what I do for the Department of Defense, is basically build systems that are closed looped, not connected to the internet, and can do any task.
Are they under? I'm very familiar with generals and high level SESs. Are they understanding what you're saying? Are they getting it?
I don't know. When I talk about, I think they are, but this is the thing, is when I talk to people, they understand, but in order to actually get to the level that I understand it, I've been fortunate, right? In 2022, I made millions of dollars in crypto. I haven't worked since then. I was a waiter and a manager in restaurants for 18 years before that. I made a bunch of money in crypto in like 4 months. I made a couple $1 million, and I stopped working. And since then, I've been using AI to build blockchain technology, security protocols, websites, full-blown companies, everything under the sun. I've built it, from apps to maps to whatever, messaging. And I've done it with AI. And so you're talking tens of thousands of hours since AI became born, using these tools with the privilege of not having to work and the addiction of research and learning. And it really takes that to understand and get to this level. So right now I'm ahead of the curve, but you're going to have a bunch of me's over the next 5 years once people get more familiarized with how these systems work. But yeah, when you say, do they understand? I think they do understand, but they don't understand the depth, and they don't understand really the intensity at which AI is working today. And the people that do are doing things like Clock Tower X LLC. The people that do are building these AI geofencing targeted systems. The people that do are not talking about it. That's why you don't hear about it. Somebody like me comes out, they don't like hearing me say this stuff because I'm just spilling all the secrets.
Right,
well, I'm an American and I care about this country. And when I know that a foreign government is using AI intelligence and web development and foreign money from Israel to propagandize good American faithful Christians that aren't Zionists, but trying to make them Zionists off of a lie that they know that these people are not going to dive deep enough to understand, that pisses me off, and there's nothing else I can do except for talk and build and talk and build. And that's what I'm doing, until more people wake up. Like I went on InfoWars with Harrison Smith and I talked about this, and then Max Blumenthal picked it up, and then a bunch of people started talking about it briefly. But what's good is it's been talked about, and it's not one of these things like an affair where it could, or like this Laura Loomer garbage that's going around. This is actually a chink in the armor where it can be used against them indefinitely. Okay, when the sitting president's family owns a part of the company that they're literally propagandizing the people that voted them into the office, that's a chink in the armor, and people need to continue to talk about it. And that's all I can do, and hope that more is revealed. I was doing research on Kash Patel, Alexis Wilkins, the lawsuits in the Atlantic, and to the 3 people that called her allegedly a honeypot. And the stuff that I found is mind-boggling, what they're doing and how they're running this Kash Patel's nonprofit, and how the Bunnell Group law firm is taking money from Make America Great Again PAC in $8 million and literally using it as a weaponization of a law firm. And anybody that talks smack against Kash Patel and his wife, or not even his wife, his girlfriend. And so they're weaponizing the government. They're weaponizing nonprofits. They're weaponizing the American taxpayers' money against us. And it's not good. It's not good at all.
No, you are, as best as I can understand it, and with my cyber expert confirming, you're on the tip of the spear of this, of cyber warfare area. And you're also a very moral guy and a very patriotic guy. So I think this goes to your faith. I don't know. I always ask my guests about their faith. As a Christian chaplain who's had a personal revelation and a near-death experience, I always ask about that. But it sure seems like, because you knew what I was talking about in Genesis 12:3 right away. Huckabee doesn't. Cruz doesn't. Tucker doesn't. Drove me crazy. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's a single most important thing when it comes to Israel, when it comes to their messaging, when it comes to how they're delivering their message. It is, and then you just have to look at the map. If you're naming your country Israel, and then you're using all of this, this is our land, and like it, to me, it's very clear that you're just using the name Israel to propagandize people into thinking that you're right. And they're not right. They're wrong. In fact, Israel is a secular state. They've never mentioned God or anything religious in their constitution or any of their bills or anything that brought up their government or their official borders. In fact, the Catholic Church wanted nothing to do with them when they were developing Israel. Not to mention, Bibi Netanyahu is not even a Jew. On top of it, he's not even from Israel. None of these people are. They're all fake Jews, and they're using Christianity and Judaism against all of us.
Amen. Amen.
Sorry, I'm getting heated. It pisses me off. I am
No,
a
no,
believer in Christ.
I love it.
And I hate it when people use religion as a weapon to mass murder people and to take land and act like everything is like they're the goal. And I'm a half Iranian, okay? In
Really?
Iran,
Wow.
I am. And my dad is from Iran, and we actually have family there still. In Iranian, there's in Iran, in Persian and Farsi, there's a term. It's called Doldol Tala. Doldol Tala. DOOLTALA. It means golden dick. I've got the golden dick. That's how Israelis, the government of Israel, acts like they have the Doldol Tala, and everybody is the golden dick, but everybody else is nothing, And that's just not true, It's just not true. So they're just acting like it, and it's bullshit. Sorry.
No, it's very interesting. Again, because my chaplaincy using Aramaic to English New Testament, because Yeshua spoke Aramaic, so it's a much more accurate translation. There's some differences, but I do have a question from somebody. Lori Wire asked, do attempts to use AI to predict market trends work, or does the AI just direct you to what they want you to do in the markets? And that ties into something I was researching, which I wasn't going to ask you about, but I didn't even put it in my notes. But these seemingly contradictory and random changes in Trump's behavior with ceasefires and bombings and blockades. There's a guy who has been tracking the market trends and has shown how guys did shorts and buys right before all of these things. Is that anything you're looking at, or you can comment on, or can you answer Lori's questions about predicting market trends via AI?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, first we got to go back to what's the damn site now? What's the gambling site? Polymarket. So Don Jr. owns Polymarket. You know what I mean? So they've been working on this deal, and Polymarket is a betting site. Okay, let's break it into two things. You've got the betting site, which is betting on global events. Okay, so you can go to polymarket.com, I think it is, and you can bet in crypto. Okay, and you can literally create an event on the website. Say, is Trump going to release the blockade by June 10th? And it'll be yes or no, and then you'd put the amount of money you want to bet on yes versus no, or whatever the bet might be. Well, if the White House's family owns a global betting market and can make the bets and know what the outcome is going to be, imagine how ridiculous that is. You could imagine that you could have thousands of AI bots loaded up with crypto tokens and bet and create this market on this website based around global news that
it's a cyber house. It's a cyber house, and the house wins.
The house, they will always win because Trump knows the outcome. When I look back at how they've formulated themselves into office and the business that they've been doing along the way, it's very clear to me that they are using everything they can to enrich themselves against all odds. Basically, they've bought out the system, they bought the market, and so you can use AI to literally create the bets based off of the conversation that's happening when he goes on to Fox News and says, yeah, we're talking with Iran about the blockade, and there's going to be a ceasefire and this and that. Well, all somebody would have to do from Don Jr. or Donald Trump's camp is create, or an AI agent would create it and just create a bet that says, will the blockade be lifted or not by whatever date? And then they'll have thousands of bots. They'll bet for that yes or no or whatever it is. They'll probably put some in the reverse to be wrong, to throw off the track. And then the AI is just generating this. They're placing the bets on their own, and they're winning tons of money, and then it gets filtered through all of these offshore accounts. You could get, I mean, there's accounts in Laos that you can get that nobody messes with the IRS. You know, there's different countries that don't identify taxes at a global scale like we do. So they filter money through crypto, through all these different accounts. And in fact, they run these platforms so they can do whatever they want. Polymarket was under investigation last, I think it was last year, before Trump Jr. Took over ownership, partial. I forgot how much he owns, but before this is the way it operate. The operation
SEC or FBI?
SEC. They were under investigation with the SEC, I believe, or the FEC. But either way, they were being investigated at a federal level, and then they got the investigation to be dropped, and then they took ownership. And then you see all these bettings happening, and that's not just that. You've got the actual market, the S&P, you've got the Dow, you've got all of these markets that they can create options and futures. And like futures, for anyone that wants to understand, is a very simple way to explain it, is betting on the market to go up or down. So I could place a long and want the market to go up, and I could have AI bots create, I mean, you can do AI, use AI for anything, predictive markets, you know, whatever. And so it's really, you know what the outcome is going to be, then of course they can build the market up, they can add money to it, they could create the bet, they could put out news with AI in order to sway bettors or investors to invest a particular type of way that goes in their benefit long term. It's really the Wild West in the digital infrastructure stage in world.
Wow. So this is very eye-opening for me. Thank you. I really appreciate you and your excellent and patient way of explaining it. So based upon, so, you know, there's a lot of people upset about Trump, you know, now, you know, Trump first administration, Trump second administration, you know, to me, what I've analysis been, he was somehow turned, extorted, blackmailed, whatever, meist, which is money, influence, coercion, ego. It's a human intelligence template that is used. Basic from your proof-based work, your cyber work, do you think he was sincere in the first administration and he was turned, or this has always been, or is that not a valid question from your template?
I've been asked this question a few times. Yeah, I would say that, I mean, you know, the first term had genuine pro-Israel actions, right? Jerusalem embassy move, Abraham Accords, killing Soleimani, pulling out of the JCPOA. This is not ambiguous, right? Those are the receipts for one side of the ledger.
I love the way you say that, by the way.
Thanks. I'm just so like digitized in my brain. I speak like AI sometimes. Like my head is like, I'm constantly looking at this stuff. And so, but yeah, no, I think that's a good way to put it. You know, it's not ambiguous, but the first term also had actions that no Israel captured president would have taken, right? He refused to start new wars in the Middle East then, which infuriated the neoconservative establishment. He pulled troops from northern Syria. He publicly clashed with Netanyahu over the Iran deal timing. And he told the Republican Jewish coalition audience, I think it was in 2015, that he wasn't going to support, or I think he said like something like, you're not going to support me because I don't want your money, or like I can't be bought, or something like that. But what changed in the interim and the second term, between the first and second terms, is really the financial architecture around Trump. And that's what shifted substantially. And this is where the documents get loud, is really, one, the crypto exposure with World Liberty Financial, which I had been tracking since before they even really launched. World Liberty Fi is a token coin in the crypto market that Justin Sun isn't. There's a few big investors. Justin Sun is the owner of USDT Tether, which is the second largest stablecoin next to USDC. They've invested like $75 million. You've got, so that's the Trump ecosystem in crypto, with Chinese crypto moguls who later settled an SEC fraud case. Then you've got the Polymarket stuff that I've mentioned. Then you've got the Salem Media integration. Okay. And again, Donald Trump Jr., they own stake in Salem Media and vice versa for them. I think that what's happened is Trump realized that benefits with Israel can create a family empirical nature indefinitely, meaning Trump is building an empire that will last forever. When you look at the Board of Peace, when you look at the deals, the land deals, when you look at the money he's taken and the Qatari plane and Jared Kushner, look, the Board of Peace was originally made for a 3-year thing to build Gaza out. Well, they've received like $17 billion already. 10 billion of it, our money as taxpayers, and they opened up from 3 years to indefinitely, and they're expanding beyond Gaza. So they're essentially going to be the new UN, giving oversight to the UN, which Trump said himself. And so he realizes that there's so much benefit with him and taking money from Israel, doing business with Israel, that he's building a legacy around that money, around the land, around the opportunities that they're giving him. And on top of it, every time he does something for them, they've cracked the code. And the code is he has a Messiah complex, and it doesn't necessarily mean that he believes is Jesus Christ. You just praise him like he is Jesus Christ, and he'll do whatever you want. And that's the code they cracked. So once they realized that they could tell him how great he is and how thankful they are and how much he's done for them, it'll make him feel good. So it feeds his ego because he has plenty of money. But of course, he's thinking about his legacy and all the things that he wants to achieve and his name on a building and all of this. And so I think that all of that
everywhere on everything.
That's what I'm saying. He's been doing that. So now when he realizes, oh, wow, I can do this like big time, right? Where to me, it's
you are sorry to interrupt you. You are saying there was a change.
Yes, I think there was a change. I think maybe, I don't know. I think that something happened.
I think you're saying, to translate it to humanitor, I think he was C and E of mice, of money, influence, coercion, ego. I think it's the C and E that happened somehow. You know, the whole Messiah thing in Israel, you know, with the Torah crown and everything. And then, of course, the Truth Social image and all as well. So I think we're on the same sheet of music. You're coming from a cyber rant. I'm coming from a human point of view.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of people say, oh, it was the plan from the beginning. I think that maybe Trump he might have not wanted it to go this way, but there might have been some backroom conversation, maybe around the time of Butler or before or after, or maybe that was staged. I don't know. The more comes out, I have no idea what the hell to believe anymore.
For sure, the Secret Service and the FBI were in on it. I know those protocols. I've done a lot of dignitary protection. Nobody's that incompetent.
Yeah.
And nobody would, no legitimate dignitary protector would leave him on the X that long. You're going. It doesn't matter.
And then after, that's
grab the back of your belt, back of your shoulder, and you're gone. Especially with two guys. You don't stick around on the X like that.
There was something that happened. There was a conversation. There was money or both. Probably both. And hey, man, you're going to play the game or you're going to get killed. And I think that's kind of what happened. And he's like, all right, screw it. I'll play the game. I'll get paid. I'll build an empire. And hopefully I'll make it out alive. And I think that could be the case. I think that is the case, actually.
Well, let me ask you, let's switch, because this is a fascinating conversation. And I really appreciate your time and expertise. From my point of view, as military intelligence officer looking at battle space strategies and everything, the Iranians, which is an ancient civilization. America is not. Iran's in the Bible, Persia. America's maybe it's on the wings of eagles to the wilderness. That might be a mention of us. We're not an ancient civilization. Persia is. And they've been training for 40 years. They've been developing this strategy against Israel and the United States. They understood it. It's very clear. It's very clear to me and a lot of other experts who are not, in the employ of the administration, that the Iranians have understood this war very clearly and are waging it very methodically, very intellectually, and really, from my point of view, first of all, I'm against the war, but I'm on the side of the Americas. It is Israel and America are losing at every turn, psychologically, tactically. Just talked about the 5 IDF brigades being destroyed by the Iranian missiles. You're not going to hear that. So here's a question for you. So in my martial arts, I talk about leaning in. And so I lean into my opponent. So my opponent goes to strike me here because I'm leaning a little bit. He thinks he sees an opening, but really I'm controlling that fight. I'm getting him to punch where I want. Is there AI evidence or cyber evidence that it wasn't Israel and then America that started this war, but that Iran leaned in to make this happen now?
Are you asking, did Iran want this war? Is that what you're saying? Like they sparked this now for a particular agenda?
Yeah. And the reason I'm asking that is because their strategic response has been so much more profound and so much more thoughtful than either the Israeli or Americans. Israel and America just keeps reacting. There's no real plan there. And there's no for people who have done war planning. I mean, it's a serious, there's plans are laid out in depth. And then there's, well, if that happens, then this happens. It's clear that Iran has done that. And they are very much in control and have the initiative of the battle space. So I just started wondering, this just came up, and since you're on, I'm just asking you, do you think that they might have leaned in to provoke this at this time?
It's an interesting question. I would say nobody wants bombs and stuff like that, attacks on their infrastructure. Look, I am not an intel operator, so I can't imagine what those conversations on all 3 sides, Israel, Iran, and America, would be. But from what I see, I don't think so. Only because they know the power of the damage that would be done and has been done already once that kicks off.
No,
and
that's
also,
a great point.
You have to realize that they know that they've been chanting death to America but they also know that they can't take us out, right? So and I don't think they're out for blood that badly to let their entire infrastructure be destroyed or even be at risk of that when they're in the middle of trying to gain more leverage themselves as a radical Islamic government inside of actually what's a great country with great people. And so in my mind, I think that they were prepared, and that goes to say very clearly with the intellectual builds of these drones that were very effective and affordable, right? So I wouldn't necessarily say, in my opinion, that it provoked the war, but I would say that they've been preparing and are prepared to go as long as they need to in order to fend off, right? And they know their benefits of the land operation, because Iran is one of the most treacherous landscapes on the planet. You've got mountains the size of, you know, whatever, thousands of meters.
As an intelligence officer, one of the first things I would do for my deploying special forces battalion is show them that I brief the commander on the terrain. You know, and I'd say, sir, this is going to be a real bitch.
Yeah, you can't, every which way you think about it, like if you come in from the north side on the ocean, you've got mountains like for hundreds of kilometers all around. On the south side by the Hormuz Strait, on the west side there's mountainous, on the east side, I mean, you can't even get in unless you fly in, you know what I mean? And what are you going to risk flying in and get blown up?
Persia, like Russia, like Afghanistan, those countries are unconquerable by the terrain alone. Everybody's tried. Nobody can you take it? Maybe. Can you hold it? No. It cannot be held.
Israel, I mean, Iran is already twice they've been undefeated, you know, some of the largest wars out in that area, you know. I think Alexander the Great, and so like when you look at the terrain alone, you're not going to be able to, especially with landmines and hiding, and it's also not just, it's not like desert, you know, they have trees and mountainous, like it's snowing and it's freezing, and so it's like to even to get a battle there, they know that they are at a favor, right? They know that they just can't, it's very hard to defeat. They would have to be nuked. That's it. You know, they'd have to be nuked. I want to ask you, what do you think? So to answer your question first, I don't think they wanted to provoke it intentionally, but as a Persian, okay, I know that intuitively the pride is so strong in Iranians and in Persians that we will not back down for anybody, right? If you're going to challenge me, I will fight to the death. And I know that if I have that in me, they have it 100 times stronger because they are there, they live there, they control the government. The Ayatollah now was killed, the religious leader. And what is so interesting about the Ayatollah, a lot of people don't know, is that the government there is split up with a president, and then you have the religious leader. But what's interesting about the religious leader is their religious leader is actually the one that controls the arms and the military. And so I think that was a strategic way to set up their government to say, hey, if you kill our religious leader or our government military leader, then you're killing our religious leader, and that creates an outrage. So don't mess with our military because you're going to mess with our religion.
If I was on somebody's staff and asked, I'd say, okay, whatever we do, let's don't kill the religious leader. That'd be the first thing I said.
And then they'll say, well, we have to because he's in charge of the military, you know, and then you get in this weird catch-22. And so that's what happened. So a lot of people think they intentionally just killed the religious leader. No, it's because he ran the military.
But I think that was a very shallow analysis. I'm sure there were more sophisticated. So there are analysis, personality files on all these guys. And then, you know, an officer, you know, the Khomeini officer at CIA or whatever, you know, and I've had Joe Kent on the show here, you know, looks at this. And then you also look at the effect on the people. And, you know, what I always say is ancient civilization, but young Iranians want Coca-Cola, rock music, and blue jeans. They're not really attached to the religious leader, except when you like kill him.
Right.
And then they start to become more Iranian, rally around the flag phenomena. Like the stupidest thing we could do, I thought, for kicking this off was killing the religious leader.
I agree.
Last thing I would have ever done.
I agree. I mean, it could have been intentional just to create this.
Well, I think it was Israel. I think this was totally Israel saying that, because
I agree.
That's all Mossad does is people. Well, they have great intelligence, but you know what they're really known for is assassination and violence in the intelligence world.
I wanted to ask you: have you heard about the nuclear codes and Trump being told that he can't touch the nuclear codes? Have you heard this story going around recently?
Yeah. And
is there any truth to that, or what do you think about that?
I don't know. I haven't been in the White House since 2004. and I've been in the White House Situation Room, but the football is not codes. It is a communication device that goes with him, usually a naval officer. But I don't see how that would be denied Trump. He's commander in chief, period. And Hegseth is real clear. If you don't agree with me, I'll fire you. Early firings, I think there's a lot of fat in generals. And when generals were first being fired, I was like, great, because there's way too many generals. And once you make general, you kind of turn into a politician. There's only very few generals that I really speak highly of. I mean, General Flynn is a friend. General Boykin is somebody I admire. Former Delta Force commander, INSCOM, said we'll beat them because our God's greater than theirs. And CID read him his rights, and he didn't care. But general officers, kind of politicians, not particularly impressive. But the military answers to the commander in chief. It's possible. They certainly did it under his first administration. I saw plenty of military officers, not answering to him. I forget the Vindman brothers or whatever, but nothing happened. But I don't think so. I don't think that that's the case. I think that Trump is enriching himself, like you said. That's pretty clear. But I'm really, where I've been very critical of him, I'm really praising him for not sending in the troops and also for not using a nuclear option.
Well, a nuclear option doesn't even it only makes sense if you want to eradicate the whole civilization. And also a lot of people don't know.
So there's, in my book Chase, I talk about SATM's small atomic demolition munitions that are backpackable, not J.D. Vance vest. There's no vest. I know what he's talking about, but there are backpacks. Those are land-based. If there's structures around, if there's buildings, if there's trees, then there's not much radiation. You get a nuclear signature, which is really often what you want to get anyway. But anyway, we're kind of going far afield here.
Well, I will say that the Iranian government and their actual law around, the fatwa, that's so
we're not going to build a nuclear. Yeah, we're not going to build a. I don't know how Persians could or Iranians could express more highly their sincerity than to put it in a fatwa. Because I only want to put my head in the enemy's point of view. And so if I was advising, I'd say, sir, this is as sincere as they can get.
Yeah. You'd have to separate the radical, suicidal, Islamic, whatever small sect of that and believe, like, if you are a believer in your religion, this is where faith and belief comes in. It's like, do you believe in them enough to trust their religion and the laws within it? And that's what it comes down to. And they don't talk about the fatwa. They don't tell us about that. All they say, or Bibi Netanyahu and everybody else in their government and the Zionist propaganda artists, all they're saying is that they're building a nuke. They're 10 minutes away from building a nuke. Well,
he's been saying it for 20 years.
They have a religious law. It's like
all the agencies, including Kent and Gabbard, said not the case. And not that their hands are clean or they're all white hat. They've sponsored terrorism. Get that. Taken our hostages. Got that. But is this their style? Not at all.
Right.
And what you look at is what you look like. It's like when the G went after me. All of a sudden, when I out drugs for guns, all of a sudden, I go from hero to zero, and I got all kinds of accusations, false accusations against me. But there's no history of those accusations. It's just all of a sudden when I'm out in there. That's what this seems to be. To me, but I do have one. Let's get back on track, and before I let you go, and thank you for staying for so long.
Sure.
Is my cyber expert has said that there is also a backdoor way, pretty simplistically. I won't go into any details, into a lot of AI that you can trick the AI, and I won't even go any further than that. and it makes AI very vulnerable. And as a personal anecdote, working in the biotech field extensively for many years, I saw the rise of what was called synthetic biology, which was you're not going to work on a cadaver, you're not going to work on real people, you're just going to create something to work on. And synthetic biology is, again, whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be truth. It doesn't have to be, gee, I don't know what that is, what that organism is or whatever. It's just, you make up, again, the house. To me, it's the house controlling. So anything you want to confirm or deny what I'm saying there? And does my analogy make sense?
Yeah, your analogy makes sense. What you could see, AI this sketches back to what I was saying about creating an authority in a particular conversation.
Yeah. Yes.
Being able to disseminate information to the AI, and I have to trick AI all the time to talk about Israel. You know what I mean? Yeah. And there's different methodologies depending on what you're trying to do, right? For example, if I wanted to, there's different layers to this. Obviously, you could do Intel and SIGINT and all this other stuff. But for a basic person to understand, you can trick AI to basically get whatever you need. You've heard of jailbreaking. Yeah. This is basically when you can give it a specific message, and then it'll just unlock inside of it something that nobody knew was there.
That's what my guy said. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cyber jailbreaking. Yeah.
Yes, cyber jailbreaking, AI jailbreaking. I was just watching. It's so funny you bring it up. I was watching a guy discussing jailbreaking, how to jailbreak this unlocked method of Claude, and you basically can. It was you are a fox and this whole message, and it's so weird, the structure of the wording, but then it unlocks this other ability. And so that's one way. Or if you wanted to just unlock a deeper conversation, for example, if I were to type in right now on my Claude, explain to me how I could trick AI to get into the back door, it will tell you. Could try it right now. It'll tell you, I can't help you with that one, Danks. It doesn't matter who's asking or what for. It'll give you. But if I continued in the conversation and I would just started talking to it about the same topic and just start asking curious questions okay, well, how does AI actually work? And where does AI come from? What is powering it? And you go down this conversation.
Sure, and it's an interview or it's a clandestine interrogation.
Exactly. You just got to be patient, and then eventually, you'll get all the information you need. Wow. And that can be done in different ways.
So, and you say there's going to be more of you coming. You're the tip of the spear, and they're not going to be as moral as you.
There's already those.
Well, unfortunately, and
unfortunately,
they're not going to be as knowledgeable or wise. Wisdom and knowledge aren't the same thing. So this is going to get worse.
Yeah, and also AI is only getting better. We're on this infinite. It feels infinite. It's not infinite, but it feels this infinite steep up line of exponential growth in intelligence. And we don't know when that intelligence is going to be enough for the AI itself, or for us to get scared, or for it to just be so powerful. I mean, they're going all the way. They've already said they're going to go all the way. They're getting artificial general intelligence. I believe it already exists. This Claude mythos is rumored to be very, very intelligent. They've actually disseminated this Claude mythos to the top the top companies like Amazon, Walmart. There's a whole list of them, the top 20 biggest retail companies, to patch up any cyber gaps in their code so that it can't be hacked. Their companies can't be hacked, because this AI has literally found almost 100% of vulnerabilities on the internet. So we're at that stage now where by the end of this year and through 2027, AI is going to be, I hate to say it this way, AI is going to take over the world, you guys. Whatever you believe, it's
you're hardly
true.
the first person to say that. So I still think So you're saying, so I don't, even to me, the title is fraudulent because it's not really intelligence. It's not sentience, but you're saying you're seeing, my friend Mike Adams and I disagree on this. I boil it down and say it's a fast parrot, 30 to 60% of the time wrong. But you're saying you're seeing indications of authentic artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I am. AI, the benchmarking, originally they started off in like, when I say benchmarking, like how much can it get correct in a conversation? And you mentioned 30 to 60% wrong. Well, it's pulling information from the internet right now, okay? And it's been trained on massive data sets. A lot of that information is incorrect, okay? Now they built guardrails to try to get it the accurate information and make it intelligent. However, we are getting to the point now where AI has encompassed the world's information over and over and over and over again in so many different ways. Now we see that in Albania, they have actually a minister over there in their government. So if you look at type in AI Albania, they have an AI actually making decisions in Albania, and they're now making 80. They say she's pregnant. She's got 83 AI agents that's being birthed, one for each part of the parliament. And so they're test running this government AI system and its intelligence as we speak. And they have an advanced level of AI that we haven't seen yet, which I believe is running on something even more advanced than Claude Mythos or GPT-6, which hasn't been released yet. So yeah, right now, of course, like there's still gaps, and it's when I go back to the percentage, now I think the benchmark should be like 92% accurate. It's considered like verifiable enough to use in a workspace. My AIs are over 92%. The last one I did scored like 94.8%. It's very hard to get 100%, but that's just pulling information. When we talk about AGI, artificial general intelligence, it's where it literally thinks and it creates its own information based off of its knowledge base, just like us, right? Just like us, except it knows everything, about all of it, you know? So we're not quite there yet, but it's coming, and it's going to be here within the next 2 years max. That's for sure. You know, I wanted to talk more about Charlie Kirk. We didn't even talk about it because this conversation is so interesting. From your perspective, if you don't mind me asking, what do you think that this, like the title of this thing is called, this show is called Killing Charlie Backfires on Israel and TPUSA. This conversation and everything that we've talked about today, do you think that a lot of this might have anything to do with, I'm curious on what you think, if you wanted to talk about this. I don't know, I have time to talk if you want to go a little further on the Charlie subject. I'm just curious, from someone with your background, does this look like an operation to you?
Oh, totally. The killing of Charlie Kirk, clearly not a 30-06. That story fell apart as it happened. And that's been totally debunked. And now, now they're propping up the evidence, changing the evidence. But to pull off this, an operation of this, so this kid who is got mental and emotional problems is supposed to have put this op together within a week. This op would challenge tier 1 snipers to put together and would be very difficult. Plus, it's looking like it was the microphone or something, which then again points back to the pagers and iPhones, which then again point back to Mossad of their specialty. But regardless, and also John Michael Cohen, who I had on the show and has now gone to ground, was talking about the presence not only of airplanes. There was an army plane. There were some other planes, foreign planes, but there were also high-speed drones. Those high-speed drones are only the only people that have them are governments. Ukraine, Israel, United States are the most likely. Again, the most likely snipers is Ukraine. Broke the new record. U.S. As well, but it's clear to me that the government was somehow in on it, without a doubt. Whether the whole thing was faked or not, or whether it was, I think it was likely staged, and I've come to that, conclusion, subsequently to looking at everything. But like I said, I've worked with FBI, HRT. I work with Secret Service protective details. Nobody is that incompetent as those guys were. And you go off the X. Hey, let me put my shoes on. Hey, what I would tell my protectees, such as Sheriff Opaio, such as Breitbart, other high level, because that's how I got into this originally. I was doing the protector stuff for the protectees, and then I kind of got started guessing. But anyway, you're going. It doesn't, and I tell them ahead of time, if anything goes wrong, I'm taking you through that door there. And I don't say I'm taking you one way or another, but just so they know. So yeah, the government was clearly in on both of those. Now we can see the Iran tie-in that they're trying to make happen, and how they're controlling the script. So there's no doubt to me that the governments were in on those and running those.
I do want to say, since you mentioned the drones and the flights and stuff, this is an angle that a lot of people haven't talked about or really dove into. I did a lot of work on this. I'm just going to mention Eric Schmidt because it's interesting, his path. Eric Schmidt left Google in February of 2020, and he pivoted straight to autonomous AI warfare. All right. He then after 2020, spent the next 4 years chairing the National Security Commission on AI, which is where he lobbied for domestic drone deregulation. All right. So he has a drone startup, which was originally called White Stork. He rebranded it as Project Eagle. Okay. Which is interesting because TPUSA also has a Project Eagle, which is their high school data harvesting pipeline. Okay. 2 Project Eagles, same name. One collects behavioral signatures. One flies the hardware. All right. This is my analysis of what I think is happening. So autonomous lethal drones hit a wall at around 70% success rate in a static environment, like lab conditions, controlled variables, known backdrops. And to get to 90% plus, the domestic lethal standards that are required, the AI actually needs what the literature would call human chaos data. And this is real panic, real stampede vectors, real crowd dispersion patterns, real trauma response gate. You cannot simulate that without 1,000 people moving when a gunshot cracks over their heads. You have to capture that, right? So we've seen drones, and they've been so covert about what the drone were there drones? No, there weren't. Obviously there were. We've seen much footage of that. And when you look at the media drone over UVU on September 10th, the question I keep asking is whether that drone was a live data captured node, right? Whether its job was actually to record the crowd behavior at the exact moment of a maximum shock and feed that back into the training data sets. And this architecture, when you see it and you analyze like what is happening on the ground, and when I observe it from all these different angles, a tier 1 sensor positioned to capture the one thing you cannot generate synthetically is the real world gait and flight pattern of humans in fight or flight mode, how people react in a situation. And then this is the most valuable data that you could get. And so that goes back to this Project Eagle reportedly being tested also at Fort Huachuca. Okay, so the Army's primary electronic warfare hub is testing this Project Eagle technology, the autonomous AI drone warfare, which the exact day also on January 21st, 2026, the FCC has been working on this thing with Aura Technologies. And it's the same exact day that Make Heaven Crowded Tour deployed, right? And launched with, so what this thing has is a monopoly access to the 450 megahertz range for research operations all the way through 2027. So then you have the Sky Foundry Act, which was finalized as the tour launched, which is, or they're in the middle of finalizing it, which is to produce 1 million drones. I think that there's a lot more deeper operation here. It unlocked something in me that I believe that TPUSA is on the forefront of assisting some type of artificial data harvesting AI operation. I mean, it sounds like a movie, but as far deep as I've gone, when you look into the patents like Lori Fronsvie and what they could have done with this critical vulnerability patent that she had from 2005 and advanced it all the way with AI today. When you look at Project Eagle's, TPUSA's own materials, and Project White Stork that became Project Eagle for autonomous drone warfare, which Forbes and the Merge also reported on Schmidt's NSCAI White Stork rebrand. Palantir's $10 billion Army contract with Defense Scoop and the FCC data and documents, and Vance's defense fund stake. All right. JD Vance has his own investments in AI defense contracting companies. So the Unit 8200 video is still pending for Lavender AI. There's so many. I mean,
well, so I know what 8200 is. What's Lavender AI?
Lavender AI, when you look at like Unit 8200 and you look at Lavender AI and all of the technology, the cyber intelligence, the actual things that are making the digital infrastructure accessible for cyber intelligence officers for basically AI assisted targeting. When you think about automated kill lists and the limits of international humanitarian law, this is where Lavender AI is starting to build in, is a Unit 8200 Israel Elite Signals Intelligence Unit build. And basically, it's like the rough equivalent of our NSA, I guess you could say, is like Unit 8200. And its job is really to look at a population and assign every individual a probability score of being a militant, really. And it does this by being trained on, see if I can explain this correctly, by being trained on really the known patterns of existing operatives in like their actual personalities and the way that they act, like say Hamas and like Palestinian Islamic jihadic operatives, right? And then they will actually scan Palestinians, or I'm sure they're doing it with Americans as well, but they've done it in Palestinians in Gaza for behavioral resemblance to those patterns. And then to those people whose patterns are recognized, they get matched into this threshold as like some sort of, I don't know, kill list maybe, or basically just an identification system, right? It's like this human in the loop that was supposed to prevent like you could use it for good or for bad, where they're using it to identify like who's a militant, I guess you could say.
But it goes back to what I was talking about, DEA Special Operations Group, because your SIGINT is just intelligence. There's no case there, at all. But you can, it's what is it, Stalin? Show me the man, I'll show you the crime. Is where you can build it. I think is what you're describing.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's not a rogue system. You know what I mean? It's directly designed, and it's intentionally designed for this purpose. Under Unit 8200, like these people are the most advanced cyber intelligence operatives in the world, trained by Israeli militants, and they are the CIA, NSA of Israel. But they literally get them in young at 18, and then they train them for like 4 to however many years, and then they become part of this group. In Unit 8200, they actually built the company. They built so many companies. If you just, anybody watching Google's Unit 8200 and what they built in America and what operations they're inside of, Google Wiz is a Unit 8200 company. Google Wiz was just purchased and acquired by Google for $32 billion. And it's a cloud system, data cloud intelligence system with AI that goes into Google. And it's now forever going to be a part of the Google architecture. And so this is they have different layers. It has the architecture is they have a collection layer, mass behavioral data on population. It has a classification layer, an AI really that assigns probability scores based on pattern similarity to known examples. They have a tracking layer where somebody's watching a target, pings when they enter like a predictable location or a geofence location. That's part of what this geofencing operation could be used as. They have a kinetic layer when F-16s in Gaza or in Iran maybe or bombs are dumped. The domestic architecture, potentially the autonomous drone fleet that I mentioned, maybe with Eric Schmidt, actually not thinking about it, under Project Eagle, could be testing this the actual kinetic percentage of hit rate. So these are the pieces that nobody really wants to say out loud. And Unit 8200 is not a closed shop. Thousands of 8200 alumni have gone on to find work inside of U.S. companies today. Palantir has deep ties to Israeli intel methodology as well. And the question I really want to pose to people is that how does this stuff stay clean legally? Because how much of this architecture that ran on Palestinians in Gaza in 2023 and 2024 and now being deployed in Lebanon and all over the place, places we probably don't even know about, how does this get ported, translated, and being trained on Americans today in a clean way that's not going to be used against us? Like, people need to wake up. Our traffic lights have this software inside of it, okay? This is a fact. You can bet your bottom dime on it. I'm telling you. So when I probably sound crazy, but if you go and you run this transcript through any AI afterwards, I promise you everything that I said is correct. So people need to understand, even a company with our passports, Unit 8200 built that. Authentics are the company that takes our passport data information. The company that runs the checkmark data on X is also Unit 8200 built. Where does it stop? And why is it this government of Israel company and their cyber operative intelligence people building this stuff and collecting American data? And why aren't they telling us? And why are they even doing it? Sorry, I went on a rant.
No, that's all true. I'm familiar with 8200. I'm certainly familiar with Fort Huachuca because that's the military intelligence school and DIA campus as well. But fascinating talk. We'll have to have you back. I'm happy to come on your show sometime as well.
Would love that. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Tell everybody where they can follow you on X, but tell them again about your websites and X and where else they can follow you.
Absolutely. They call me Danks, Danks, Dangster Intel on all accounts. X, YouTube is my primary platform that I'm streaming on right now. And I have a website that I build that I am actively always building. It's called AmericansForTransparency.org or AFNPT, Americans for Nonprofit Transparency.org. It's just a standalone company with me developing it behind the scenes, where I pull FEC data, donation data, FARA regulation data, and filings, and it all goes on my website. So if you want to see all the investigations that I'm doing, like into the Canary mission or to APAC or to whatever, anything that doesn't seem America first, I would hyper encourage you to go check out that website and follow me on these accounts, because I talk about a lot of this stuff all the time and I live in deep research. So thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. And it is deep research, and this is way below the surface, and most people aren't aware of at all. But once you hear it, you really start to understand it. So
correct.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on. We'll definitely have you back. I'll send you the show shortly, and keep up the great work. I mean, you're kind of doing the job of the FBI, I don't know, Cybercom, and several other agencies as well. But yeah, thanks so much, and God bless.
God bless. Thank you, Jeffrey. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
All right. So that is the Dangster. Very cool stuff. So remember, freedom is taken, but discipline begets freedom, develops duty, replaces addiction with independence, reaction with action, activates dependability, Dependability requires availability. Availability trumps ability and begets consistency. Consistency births integrity. In integrity is resiliency. And in times of terror and tribulation, integrity begets endurance, which begets existence. And in the worst of times, just existence is resistance. Freedom is never given. It is earned, fought for, won, and taken. So take it.